The PS4 Pro has been out for over 6 months now, and the Xbox One X is inching ever closer to release, and with that 4K TVs are becoming ever prevalent in the video game world. They are by no means a necessity at this point, but with each year they are more affordable and more games are taking advantage of them, meaning for many, 2017 is the year to pull the trigger on buying a 4K TV. So today I'll be recommending 5 great 4K HDR TVs for the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X that were released in 2017 at varying price points to accommodate a variety of different budgets. Before I do that however, it's important to note the aspects of what you should ideally look for outside of just being a 4K TV, as there's a lot of technical jargon and buzzwords that are misleading or just downright confusing to your average consumer. These are: number 1, input lag. Input lag is the amount of time between a picture being generated by a source and appearing on the screen. Input lag isn't important for general TV watching, but is extremely important for gaming. Generally, anything under 40 milliseconds is considered perfectly usable unless you're a professional gamer. We need it as low as absolutely possible for the tiniest advantage. Number 2, HDR or high dynamic range. A lot of TVs will note they have HDR, but to get the results you want you'll need an HDR TV, which is usually reserved for the higher end models. To make things more complicated, a TV will need a wide enough colour gamut in addition to being HDR10 to actually produce the results you want. And finally 3, size. The smaller the TV, the closer you'll need to sit to notice the difference in resolution. Sit too far away from a 40-inch TV for example, and you might just struggle to notice a difference in resolution. Anything 49 inches and up should be perfectly fine for most setups, but bigger is certainly better. With all that said, let's look at some recommended options. To start off with, we have a 4K TV for under $1,000 for those looking to jump into 4K on a budget, in which the Samsung MU6300 or MU6100 as the UK equivalent appears to be, is a great option. You can buy the 50-inch model for $745 or £600, or then get the screen in a smaller size as 40-inch, bringing down the price further if you wanted to. The picture quality is seen as above average and the contrast levels are really good for the price. Being a more low-end 4K TV, although it is capable of HDR, you won't get the same results as much higher models, and therefore it's the set's biggest negative, but you'll still notice a difference when turning HDR on in games. When it comes to input lag however, it's very low with a 20.2 milliseconds when playing in 1080p or 4K and HDR enabled, making it really fantastic for gaming. If affording any other TVs in this video is impossible, then you really can't go wrong with the MU6300 as an entry into 4K, even if it's not the top performer out there. The second TV is the 2017 release of the popular Samsung KS8000 or KS7000 depending on where you live, and sells for around $1,000 or £1,000 for the 49-inch. The 2017 model looks virtually the same as last year's model, minus a slightly more brushed metal look as opposed to the more chrome reflective metal of the KS8000. The input lag sits at 24.2 milliseconds in 1080p or 4K in HDR, meaning it's perfectly good for fast games that require quick reactions. The set is an HDR10 display with a moderate colour gamut being the only real negative, but the results are still very pleasing to the eye with colours really popping in certain games. One very noticeable improvement is the change of build quality over the 2016 version. The KS8000 was prone to something called back panel separation, where if you were unlucky, gradually the back panel would begin to loosen after gradual usage. Thankfully this no longer appears to be an issue with the MU8000. If you can get hold of the KS8000 it might be worth it due to the cheaper price and actually performing better than the MU8000 in a couple of areas, although due to it being discontinued it may prove hard to get hold of now. With that said, the MU8000 is a great option with good deep black levels and a greater build quality giving you more peace of mind. Next is the Sony X900E, which you can purchase for around $1,200 or £1,300 for the 49-inch, making it similarly priced to the last TV. The X900E has fantastic picture quality, excellent contrast levels and great peak brightness, with HDR being particularly good on this set due to its wide colour gamut and local dimming, with the local dimming being considerably better than the Samsung MU8000. The input lag is on the slightly higher end, sitting at 31.5 milliseconds in 1080p and 34.2 milliseconds with 4K and HDR, but perfectly within the range of good for all genre of games unless you're a pro gamer, and certainly won't be an issue at all for the majority. The TV's viewing angles aren't the best when compared to some TVs and it could benefit from a soundbar, but those are minor grievances for what is a well-performing TV for its price point. The fourth TV is another from Sony, in fact it's a model up from the last, the Sony X930E. You can purchase a 55-inch for around $2,000 or £1,900, meaning it's considerably more expensive than the X900E, but also has some substantially better results. Visually the TV is very similar with some small design differences as well as being quite a bit thinner and looks really sleek. Contrast wise the TV is excellent, with over twice the contrast ratio of last year's model and producing very deep blacks. Peak brightness is also incredibly good, meaning even in the brightest of rooms it will still appear great and is one of the biggest selling points of the TV that shouldn't go unnoticed. It beats the X900E due to better local dimming and higher brightness levels, producing a much more compelling overall image, albeit at an added cost. The input lag is pretty good in 4K and HDR, sitting at 25.8 milliseconds, however strangely in 1080p it jumps to a rather mediocre 42.3 milliseconds, which is something to think about if you want to purchase this TV, as you may notice it slightly in Twitch games. That aside, the Sony X930E is a great TV for its class and price. Lastly is the LG C7, an OLED display that will produce an absolutely amazing picture for the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. Being an OLED display, it doesn't come cheap, coming in at around $2,500 or £2,500 for the 55-inch version, meaning you're paying comparatively a fair amount more in the UK compared to the US. As you'd expect from a high-end OLED 4K TV, the LG C7 is an HDR10 set with a large colour gamut and is one of the very best at showing how amazing HDR can really be. No doubt helped by the fact the TV produces perfect blacks due to its infinite contrast ratio, and it's something really to experience in person, especially in a dark room where it shines even more. When it comes to input lag, the TV produces some good numbers, coming in at 21.3 milliseconds in 1080p and ever so slightly lower when 4K and HDR is enabled at 21.1 milliseconds, meaning it's great for Twitch FPS games and considerably lower than the 31.1 milliseconds input lag of last year's C6 model and also lower than the B6 model as well. If you can afford the asking price, the LG C7 is an incredible 4K TV for gaming with its unrivaled OLED display that you absolutely won't regret purchasing. That's it for today. I hope you liked the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and sub and follow Project Gamer on Twitter for channel updates. Click the thumbnail on the left for 7 of the best looking games on the PS4 Pro, or the one on the right for everything you need to know about the Xbox One X. Thanks for watching as usual, and I'll see you on the next video.